Okay, let's do Fanny Crosby next. Kind of an American counterpart of Isaac Watts in the sense that she wrote lots and lots of hymns that are still used today. And a matter of fact, this was probably not the case with the New Presbyterian Hymnal, but there was a time, say the 1950s and 1960s, that when people were putting together new hymnals, their first triad, there would be 50 Fanny Crosby hymns and 50 Isaac Watts, and I'd kind of say, that may be a little unbalanced, we may need to cut down a little on their hymns, and it's because they were so popular. This is an extraordinary woman, and she needs to be remembered. She's born in 1820 in Brewster, New York. Frances Jane Crosby. Around 1832, she received singing lessons and was exposed to Methodist hymns. Now, Methodist hymns in the 1820s would have been revivalist type hymns. They wouldn't have been, high church. They weren't singing Mendelssohn and Beethoven and Bach. These would have been revival camp hymns. Convention hymns is what they were doing. 1835, she starts attending the New York Institution for the Blind, where she will learn to play multiple instruments. And it is from this point that her life starts to diverge from your average blind person in 1843 in the United States. By 1843, she addresses the Senate of the United States on the issue of education for the blind. So she was actually asked to address the Senate, so they let her, up, and she gave a speech to the United States Senate.
She was born blind?
Born blind. Well, I think it actually was when she was very young. 1844, Crosby and other students for the New York Institution for the Blind perform a concert for Congress, and she publishes A Blind Girl and Other Poems through Putnam and Wiley. She gets to sing for the United States Congress after giving them a speech, and she publishes her first book of poems. These aren't really hymns. 1846, she speaks before a joint session of the United States Congress in support of education for the blind, and she becomes an instructor at the school that she had attended. 1849, she helps care for victims of a cholera epidemic in New York City. And that's where you really see how dedicated someone is to good works and social causes, is when the tuberculosis epidemic hits, the bubonic plague epidemic hits, the cholera epidemic hits. They're the ones that stay behind. Between 1851 and 1857, she teams up with composer George Root. George Root may be the most popular kind of commercial songwriter of the time, and writes a series of secular songs with George Root. 1853, with Root, she publishes a cantata named Daniel, or the Captivity and Restoration. 1858, she marries blind teacher Alexander Van Alstyne Jr. And we're just started on Fanny Crosby's accomplishments. 1864, Golden Censer is published, a collection of songs for Sunday school. We don't sing together enough here. 1869, she composes Rescue the Perishing, which is written about urban mission work. And as she got near to the end of her life, and people asked her, well, are you most proud of all the hymns you wrote? She looked at them like they were crazy. She said, no, that was just a sidelight. What I'm most proud of is the mission work I did in New York City. But Rescue the Perishing is a song still sung today. I already told you about the power strip issue, right? If I could play you this, then I'd have to shut down the well, anyway. So next week I will play you Rescue the Perishing. And I found this wonderful version of it on YouTube where these four guys sing it in a Sunday school class. It's wonderful. It's just absolutely wonderful. These four unknown guys in some Sunday school class like ours. And they posted it on YouTube. It's wonderful. I can't wait till you hear it. It's so wonderful.
Want me to find it, Robert?
Pardon?
Want me to find it?
Well, you don't have enough volume on your phone, really. So I have it on CD. I just can't play it because I don't have power. Then she, 1873, she co-writes Blessed Assurance with Phoebe Palmer Knapp, who is the daughter of the Phoebe Palmer who started the Holiness Movement. Holiness Movement is kind of the predecessor of the Pentecostal movement, and it's the one where they think it's possible that after baptism it's possible to lead a sinless life. 1871 to 1877. She meets William J. Kirkpatrick and starts a co-writing song with him. She wrote the words, he wrote the music. From 1871 to 1908, so you can see it's an over 30-year partnership. She has this musical partnership with gospel music publisher Ira Sankey, who you now all know who he is. Dwight Moody and Sankey promote her hymns all over the United States. They also promote her hymns in England and in Scotland, which is one of the reasons she becomes so popular. And it would be like the modern day equivalent of nobody had heard of Bill Gaither until Elvis Presley decided to name one of his albums, He Touched Me, and did a Bill Gaither song. So it's kind of the same thing. 1903, Fanny Crosby's life story is written by Will Carlito, and it's published. It's not really an authorized biography, and Fanny is not necessarily used by that publication.
Oops.
1905, Fanny's 85th birthday is celebrated in churches around the world. Think of that. Churches all over the world observe the moment of celebration of Fanny Crosby's birthday. And that shows you how well known, how popular her hymns were by that point. 1906, Crosby herself publishes her autobiography, Memories of 80 Years, which is actually focused on her hymn writing, because by that point, even though she considered her major ministry to be the social work that she did in New York City, obviously the whole rest of the world, the other billion people in the world at the time, knew her because of her hymns. And so she focused on writing, well, this is why I wrote Blessed Assurance. Blessed Assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a Savior. You know that song. You haven't? There, good. And so she would write a little bit about how she wrote each song and who she wrote with. That kind of thing. She dies on February 12th, 1915, and she is mourned throughout the world. 1925, churches all through America commemorate her 105th birthday. And 1975, again, although she doesn't know it, she was elected to the Gospel Music Hall of Fame. Now, there is some controversy on who is the most prolific hymn writer of all time. Fanny Crosby ranks as either number 1 or number 2. She wrote over 8,000 hymns. Now think about that a moment. She wrote 8,000 hymns. So the controversy is this. Well, anybody want to guess who she's in competition with? Charles Wesley, of course. And some sources say that Charles Wesley wrote 6,500 hymns. You ask Barbara Eford, how many hymns did Charles Wesley write? She'll say 6,500. But other sources, including Christian History Magazine, say, Charles Wesley wrote 9,000 hymns. So you see the nature of the controversy. But Fanny Crosby, I think the fact that she wrote 8,000 hymns is reason enough to put her in our top 10 list here. And here's an 1868 sheet music called Clustering Willows by Fanny Crosby and W.H. Pettibone that I thought was pretty cool. She worked as an American Methodist rescue mission worker. She was a poet, a lyricist, and a composer. So she did write music, but at the time she wrote the poetry and somebody else wrote the music. Her most important role was that of a mission worker. Here we are. She became blind as an infant when she was 6 weeks old. Throughout the rest of her life, she wore those octagonal sunglasses. And there's not many pictures of her either, but when you see a picture of her, she's wearing those little octagonal sunglasses. She did musical collaborations in the 19th century with the most important gospel writers of the time, Howard Donne, George Root, William Kirkpatrick, Ira Sankey, and William Bradbury. And Sankey and Dwight Moody helped to popularize her hymns. Rescued Perishing, she wrote in 1869. Blessed Assurance in 1873 with Phoebe Palmer Knapp. I am thine, O Lord, with Howard Donne. Draw me near, near God to me. To God be the glory. She wrote in 1875. So she's on our list because she wrote 8,000 hymns. And again, did you check how many are in this one?
23.
23 hymns, and the one we have in here. Feel free to check out the one in the sanctuary. And you sang one today by Fanny Crosby. So if you're going to talk about the big three, it's probably Watts, Fanny Crosby,